So, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do, I wanted to do the entire movie, but I just can't. I can't put myself through this. So we're just going to look at some things in the Patriot, and I'm going to talk about them, and then I'm going to talk about some bizarre notions some people have about how wars were fought in this time period. So I hope you enjoy. So I did a little bit of looking at who these characters are actually meant to be. So Benjamin Martin obviously is a whole bunch of different characters, none of which are anything like Benjamin Martin or Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's actually quite a bit like some of the actual people in history, but anyway. Put that to the side, he's basically complete fiction, and yeah. This guy on the screen right here is meant to be Light Horse Harry Lee, for some reason. General Lee's father, who was a Revolutionary War figure, and quite important, and, you know, did well. The only problem is that Light Horse Harry Lee is called Light Horse Harry Lee because he had a battalion / regiment / brigade, depending on what time you're looking at and how you classify those three things, of Light Horse. He was actually a commander of a unit of Light Horse, hence the name Light Horse Harry Lee. So to have him as some like official dragoon officer who is just like in South Carolina for some reason, who fought with, anyway, the whole notion of the Patriot is just ridiculous. Benjamin Martin is supposedly a veteran of the French and Indian War who fought under Washington, although Washington didn't actually do much fighting in the French and Indian War. He took part in a campaign called the Wilderness Campaign, which doesn't exist. He has a British officer's uniform, yet supposedly he served with the Virginia militia living in South Carolina. So did he come from Virginia? Why was he serving under Washington if he has an English officer's uniform? And you can do that because it's got the, what's that thing called? The gorget. He was a captain. He was a captain, which actually is the only part of it that actually makes sense. If Benjamin Martin was a captain, that was pretty much for most of the war the highest British rank that the British Army was actually giving out to Americans. That was the highest rank you could sort of be commissioned as or purchase as or whatever. That's a whole video on its own. That's a whole Crucible of War focused video, which is a fantastic book, focusing on the relationship between those things. But anyway, supposedly he fought under Washington in the French and Indian War as a British officer, bizarre, who technically would have outranked Washington. Don't even get into that. From another state that he's not from, that's quite far away from the state that he is from, in a campaign that doesn't exist, under a general who did very little fighting. Anyway, and Light Horse Harry Lee had nothing to do with that. Supposedly this guy does. I don't even remember his name, it's not worth remembering. You can look it up. Haven't even started the video, already ranting. This movie does these cutesy little, like, name dropping. This character is actually meant to be this other character. The guy we're about to see next is obviously Rochambeau, although they've gone like, but we can't make him Rochambeau or Lafayette. We don't want to make him Lafayette, but he's Lafayette, because you got to remember he's Lafayette. You know, Lafayette has nothing to do with this. But Americans know who Lafayette is. They don't actually. They know the name Lafayette. They know he's French. They know he worked with George Washington, who is also has nothing to do with any of this. This is the Southern Campaign. Anyway, I'm getting all worked up here, but this is just ridiculous. The Southern Campaign of the U.S. War of Independence is pretty much the only part of it I really know about. And this is just a travesty. Although, for perks, I'm going to highlight it on the screen, there's actually a bayonet in this scene, which is probably one of the first American bayonets I've ever seen. That has to have been a prop mistake. There's no way they did that. It's just ridiculous. So this gentleman here, I had to look up what his name is, and as soon as I've read it, you have to be kidding, right? You have to be kidding that Mel Gibson is just smacking you in the face with a brick. This Frenchman, who is, with a bad French accent, is Villeneuve. He's called Villeneuve. This guy who was very naval focused in this movie, you know, he gets here on a ship, he's on that ship when they blow up the British ship, he's in the little boat. His wife and kids were killed on ships. The whole point of the French in this movie is they have the ships at the end, and it's like subtle, very subtle. The French are all about ships in this movie, and this guy is named Villeneuve, or Villeneuve, I'll call Villeneuve, who was the French admiral at the Battle of Trafalgar, the most famous French admiral of all time. It's subtle, very subtle naming. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Villeneuve, whatever. I'm not French, I don't care. He lost the Battle of Trafalgar. He really only fought the Battle of Trafalgar because he found out he was going to be replaced, and he figured, well, if I'm getting replaced, I might as well try. Got captured, got to Britain, got traded back, tried to join the French army, and then killed himself. Got Epsteined back by Napoleon in 1806. If you believe that sort of thing. Stabbed himself 6 times in the lung and then once in the heart in a suicide. Whatever. So this is Major Villeneuve, which is, again, ridiculous. And he's wearing an old French uniform, not a current one. The hell is that? What the hell? Someone get a wet rag. What the hell's going on here? Why is this drummer bleeding from the head from a head wound? There was no battle yesterday. Why is it? Has this guy been like untreated for weeks? What's going on? And the uniforms, I'm not even going to get into that. Why they're wasting good cloth on a head wound that probably doesn't need it? Where's the like padding underneath to keep the blood? It's just cloth wrapped around. That's a waste. This hatch, this tricorn should probably have some sort of... Anyway, let's not get into that. But it's ridiculous that someone would just have a free-flowing head wound when there hasn't actually been a battle yet. Someone should look into that and possibly investigate the competency of the army surgeon. It's actually not a bad scene, getting no bayonets, because why would an American need a bayonet? They just stroll up, you're under cannon fire, but yeah, that's what militia do, is they stroll. That's what veterans do too, they stroll when under cannon fire. They don't, panic and freak out, or even just become slightly concerned. At a cannonball hitting about 20 feet in front of you, that's not going to upset you at all. At least the officers are on horses. Oh my goodness, what the hell is that? Whoa, that's a big cannon. That's much bigger than a normal sized field cannon. Okay, look at this laziness here. You've got guys in front of you with what are called blue facings. You can see the back of the collar there is blue, and the cuff would be blue too, but I don't think you can see it in this shot. Apparently there's a bunch of grenadiers in front, not sure why they're there or why they're wearing those headgear. Should not be wearing that headgear, that's wrong. But the flag, I can't prove this, I'm always certain the British flag should be on the other side and the battalion colour should be on the left. Not sure, I'll post it below. The point of the blue facing is that that's the regimental colour. So why do they have a yellow flag? Why do they have a yellow flag and blue facings? First of all, the cannon's way too close. That recoil would send that thing back into the battalion line there and kill people. It would probably kill more people than the cannonball would. So that's dangerous as hell. There should be more people on that cannon, not just like 3 dudes. But anyway, we'll talk about that. For some reason, the British officers are just hanging around, not doing anything about this. And yeah, let's go on. That's a really close camp. You should probably move that. Oh look,
Harry?
Oh, they even call him Harry too. Oh no. Okay, so this is meant to be Cowpens and or Guildford's Courthouse. I'm going to call it Coral Sea, Battle of the Coral Sea, because it's about as accurate as those two. So why not? Lighthorse Harry Lee was at one of them. Can't remember which one. But he wasn't actually involved in the main line. He was skirmishing with Tarleton's dragoons off to one side. So the movie is nothing to do with either of these battles. Please don't think that this is in any way accurate.
Thank you.
That's one of my favourite parts too, because it's the one attempt this movie does at sort of being modern and trendy, and it's a failure.
It's October now.
I know.
It's more than 12 months. You're a free man.
Wrong. Okay, so this is in reference to this guy here was signed up, is a slave, is signed up by his master owner to serve with Benjamin Martin's volunteers, because it's part of this whole myth of like, hey, it was a mixed unit of blacks and whites and it was all trendy and cool. Look up who the Swamp Fox was. It was nothing like that. But then this thing gets posted, and even in the movie they post it correctly where it says any slave who does 12 months service with the Continental Army is free. Right? It's quite clear. This is not the Continental Army, this is just a band of militia in South Carolina. He's not free, he just did 12 months with a militia band. That means nothing. He's not in the Continental Army. He's not even in a state militia. Like it's such a glaring oversight that they didn't even attempt to fix. And it's when this movie's full of it. It's sort of like, oh well, like he doesn't actually own slaves. He just has people who are black who work on his cotton fields, but they're not slaves, because that's real. Because that's what you would do if you were, anyway. See why I can't do the whole movie? And then this guy is like, well, I'm here for myself now. It's like, no, you're not. You're here because you're still owned by the other dude, because you're not in the Continental Army and you're not free. And in some states, it's actually illegal to free you. So, yeah.
I'm here now on my own accord.
Nah, no, you're not. You're still property.
I'm honored to have you with us.
Yeah.
Honored.
Shoulder! Arms! Shoulder! Arms!
Oh, Sergeant's doing something that sergeants do. We won't see that again.
Punch!
Yes. Notice we just saw sergeants doing something that a sergeant would do.
How old were your daughters?
Violet was 12 and Pauline 10. They had green eyes.
I'm sure they were lovely.
Yes, they were.
He's holding the sword wrong. So generally officers in this period have the sword out like this, because one, it gives you a line to dress on, and two, it's just less awkward than holding it up like this, because you're bearing all the weight on your wrist, and it's just ridiculous. Or up like that, but it's to the side, but it's generally more. Oh gosh, yeah, the 3 inches of recoil on that was totally legit. So that was the first part. Blah blah blah, you know how it goes. Then they do the fake, like, oh, we're going to do the retreat, just like they did at that real battle that this is based on, except it had nothing to do with that. And this next video I'm showing, because it has the best, most this is what people think war was like back then, and it could not be more wrong, and it's so sickening. And I think I know where it's coming from. And I want to address this like fake myth about where this is coming from. So let's watch it.
It ends today.
So first of all, this raggedy nonsense here. Those are your colours, by the way. You would protect those. They're kind of important, especially if you're commanding officers. Completely nothing on the flanks. There's no one out here. They're all like this tiny little thing. Why aren't the cavalry just flanking out here, pin the infantry in, move guns out, and just pound them? I don't know. There's no more line anymore. It comes to seem just be a big mob of people running. Again, the sergeant. We know sergeants exist because we heard them in the first video. We heard them repeating the orders and yelling and that sort of thing, making sure the ranks were all nice and tidy. Do people think sergeants was just like a rank you got when you got like super good in the army? It's like, oh, you've been here for 10 years, we'll put you some chevrons on you, you're a sergeant now. Is that what people think a sergeant is? Do people think sergeants became what they were in 1980 when Ali Army did Full Metal Jacket? Or the 70s, I think it was the 70s. Anyway, do people think he was the first ever sergeant? If a sergeant saw this in a rank and file black powder Napoleonic-esque, not Napoleonic, I know, Ancien Regime-esque, technically more correct, line battle, they would be grabbing the people near them and hitting them, screaming at them, taking names for punishment. A sergeant was actually the guy who kept the units together. So the officers coordinate, they repeat orders, and make sure everybody's moving in the grand scheme of things. And the sergeants and corporals are file fillers and rank fillers. So if someone dies, they move the thing up. If people start spreading out, they put them back together. People get too squished, they spread them out. The NCO's job, the non-commissioned officer's job, is to maintain the cohesion of the unit. And they were terrifying. The sergeant could have you flogged. He could beat you himself, and more than capable of it, probably. I mean, the stereotypical Patrick Harper sergeant was a real thing. So there was no way a line would get like this. And if it did, there would be people running around trying to get it back in order, or just being feral and nasty. I mean, we see no sergeants whatsoever here. No one's even trying to get this back together. There's officers just running to keep up by the looks of it. The colours are just way ahead. There's no colour party guards. I might be picking on this too much, but it really is just bad. It's just... This wouldn't happen. If a line... People... This is one of those things I was talking about. People read about, like, oh, and the line got disrupted and they ran forward in a mob. That means maybe some guys were 10 steps ahead and some guys were 10 steps behind. Or 20 or whatever. Like, you get in this big shuffle here. And then what happens is a threat presents itself in front of you and you have to dress your ranks quickly and you lose time. Or cavalry come on you and they slaughter you and you lose time. What it doesn't mean is free-for-all run, go and charge into a bunch of lined-up, formed men. Because the first thing a human being does when it sees other human beings trying to hurt it is look for friends, right? And it's ridiculous. This didn't happen almost ever. I'm not going to say never, but it certainly didn't happen here. Tarleton, his name was Tarleton, by the way, not Tavington. He's wearing a Tarleton hat because the hat was named after him. He's a great example of why commissions should be paid for, by the way. Anyway, he was promoted by merit through the ranks. Well, he started out as a low-ranking commissioned officer, which he purchased, and then got a bunch of free commissions very early. This is why you should have paid commissions, because so lunatics like this stay as captains where they belong, because they come from impoverished families, and they know nothing about the military, and he's not a special circumstance where you need to ignore the rule. This guy should never have been anything above a lieutenant. Tarleton in real life. He's called Tavington. Does that mean he's wearing a Tavington on his head? I don't know. Anyway, besides the point. There's a big thing made earlier in the movie about how he runs down a bunch of people. I can't remember the name of the battle. It's below. And that's where the Tarleton's Quarter comes from. And it's more anti-British propaganda. What actually happened was the Americans were surrendering. His cavalry came up to accept the surrender. Someone shot someone. Somebody shot something. The bullet hit his horse. He went down. The men with him thought that someone had shot him, so they ran in and killed a bunch of people. Not great. Not ideal. Probably a war crime. Hardly butchering and murder. Not that he was a good dude. He was not a good guy at all. But neither were a lot of the Americans. But anyway, the whole... He's just a bloodthirsty slaughterer who kills all those people and then burns your house down. And then slaughters fleeing people for no reason. The movie is ridiculous like that. Not saying he was a good guy. He was definitely not a good guy. Oh look, they're still running even though they see the threat. Look at those lovely uniformed Americans too. I'd love to know where they got those from. Jeez, even battalions couldn't put the same uniform together. This whole army's got one. My goodness. Oh, howitzers, nice. See, they're proper sized cannons. You see this? Have a look at these cannons. These are proper cannons. With the siege pieces those British seem to have. So these are howitzers. They're very low angled. They should be more angled up. These love actual explosive shells. I don't know where the other explosive shells are coming from, but howitzers actually do have them. And we see a little mortar there too. That's actually quite nice. Now these would be probably 6-pounders, maybe 9-pounders. These are actual field artillery. Yeah, again, that's actually kind of nice. They should be recoiling like 10 feet back, but whatever. And they should be way further apart. Oh, look at all those howitzer shots. Oh my goodness, look at all the howitzers. That French officer should not have been lying down, he should have been standing up. Even if guys are firing behind you, you're an officer, you don't lie down. Especially if you're a European officer like that. I know the French were weird in the French and Indian War. Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness, look at that. Okay, so the king's colour. If you guys have seen Sharp, you know the whole, like, Simerson loses the king's colour and he's told to go and kill himself. The king's colour. Sorry about the bad video, I'm watching it on YouTube. Is, first of all, by himself. Second of all, just running like a lunatic. No one's grabbing him. There should be 2 sergeants next to that thing, keeping an eye on that ensign, who should be an officer, not just some dude, to make sure he doesn't do what he just did. Where is the... Again, the sergeants just disappear. The sergeants exist only so that when he says, well, like, shoulder arms, everyone goes, shoulder arms. It's like, oh, sweet, look, there's other people in this movie besides Mel Gibson and this fake Frenchman. But that wouldn't happen, and no one's going for that flag. Capturing a colour is a big deal. You get famous from doing it. In the British Army, you get promoted, you know, to sergeant, that thing that doesn't exist, or to ensign, where you get your own... Capturing colours is a big deal, and here it's just like, I'm going to flip you over and just, haha, look at me go. It's like, can someone pick that up? And again, they're just single guys running into combat by themselves. No unit cohesion whatsoever. Oh my goodness, American bayonets! Oh, look at that, he just waited for that guy to run and hit him in the head. This is why you have unit cohesion, gentlemen. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah, that's totally how people get shot. Okay, we have this is the part that annoys the crap out of me. This really annoys me. Okay? Oh, we're good, we're charging, we're going up, we got, you know, units need a bit of dressing. Why are they stopping? Why are they stopping? And not only do they stop, they let the British fire a volley at them from like 20 feet. Who thought this was a good... This is how people think the war was fought. Again, blue cuffs and collars, green flag, that's a wrong regimental flag. For some reason there's grenadiers there. They're obviously not guarding the flag, because the freaking flag bearers just run out. There's only one flag there, they should have another one. Maybe that's the flag that just ran out and got captured because the grenadiers weren't doing their job. I'm really getting fired. You see why I can't do the whole movie? This movie is trash. The rear ranks, apparently some of them are still shouldering their arms. I don't know what they're doing. Sergeants should be there, smacking heads, taking names, giving out punishments. But of course they're not. They're too busy not existing. Oh, there's a sergeant in the front row, actually. You see this gent? I can't... My mouse is turned off. But the guy in the middle with the sword pointed down, I'll highlight him on the screen. He's a sergeant. He has the little tassel things on his pants. Why? What's he doing? Why isn't he back there smacking heads? Why is he in the front acting useless? Maybe some sort of officer and the uniform's just way out. But I don't understand this. I think I know where this... Like, obviously this is just some dumb thing where it's like, oh, well, you have to be in line to be completely effective, so it's better to rest your ranks and take a full volley at point-blank range from a British battalion than it is to just charge into them when you're both kind of disorganized. That's ridiculous. That's insane. You would be slaughtered at that point-blank range with muskets. Oh, but they're so inaccurate. You can't miss. The only way you can miss is up. There's a whole rank of people in front of you, way closer than would be in real life. The British have quite good spacing. The Americans just shoved in. This line is about 20 people long, by the way. It just ends at that last grenadier. Just pull the camera like slightly that way and you cut it off. Anyway. This is where this nonsense comes from of like, well, the commanders would invite one another to fire first. It's like, yeah, that did happen, but it was never like a gentlemanly thing. Fontenoy is the big example of this, and I came across this. The reason I'm watching this video is because I came across Fontenoy, which I was trying to make a video about. Maybe I will. At Fontenoy, the British Grenadiers did invite the French to fire first. And they did it like they goaded them into doing it. The officers presented and gave the French the option to fire first. Because they were out of range. The French were out of range. And the British knew that they could goad them into doing something stupid. And they're like, oh, please, gentlemen, fire first. And the French went, ha ha, oui, oui, yes. And it fired. And the bullets did nothing. So they charged. And then the British were like, oh, well, we'll just wait until they get really close and then fire. Because that's how you get the maximum result out of your fire. And they were dumb enough to fire early. The same thing happened at the Plains of Abraham, which is the battle that basically got Britain Canada. where it's like a 15-minute battle. It's huge, and it goes for 15 minutes. The British deploying a long thin line. They have a bunch of skirmishes on the trees. The French come on. The French fire too early. The British kind of encourage that, and they get massacred in 10-15 minutes. Wolfe is killed, and Montcalm is also killed. Both generals die in the 10-minute battle. But, you know, the generals are very safe sitting back. Anyway. Generals drop like flies in the French and Indian War. And in the American War of Independence, they also kind of get wounded and killed a lot. There's a general rule, the smaller the engagements, the more likely the commanding officers are to be hit. Anyway. But this nonsense idea of close with the enemy, stop immediately, trade fire with them. Not this close. Not this 100 feet, 50 feet maybe. Yo, definitely, your 50 feet would be your volley firing range. Not freaking 6 feet or 10 feet or whatever this is. This is barely social distancing range. It's ridiculous, and it's just one of those tropes that people like. Oh, they lined up and just fired at one another, and they're like, oh, please, sir, I shall stand here and you will kill me, and then if you don't kill me, then I'll fire back at you. It's ridiculous. I don't need that. Look at that. Oh, people just drop like flies. And then they do a disorder charge anyway, into a just mob of people. Just ridiculous. Oh, just whoosh, like no one's going to stab you. And everybody's fighting like a stick fighting. For some reason, they're all Shaolin monks, like stick fighting one another. Except for him, oh my goodness, he has a tomahawk for some reason. And shocking, your raggedy charge after taking a full volley from a British battalion is failing. The rest of the movie is just garbage. We'll play this last scene. Oh my god, they're running away. They're not even trying to surrender. And then he just calmly shoots somebody 10 feet away with a pistol while walking, carrying. Yeah, that totally would happen. The giant siege guns that recoil 3 feet. In one of the battles, the British did fire into their own people. I don't know what happened to this battle. This is the Battle of the Coral Sea. Who knows what they did in real life? Apparently he's fighting like a Navy officer and not an Army officer. They're all jamming the pistol in someone's gut. It's ridiculous. By the way, Tarleton or Tabington or whatever they call him, the Tarleton survived the war. Tarleton survived the war and became a British MP. He never served again. He tried to get service in Spain. The British were smart enough not to let this lunatic anywhere near a soldier. They made him like a bunch of fake military positions all over the place, gave him a generalship at some point. This is why commissions were a good thing. They kept idiots like this out of harm's way. And these frontier wars, which the American War of Independence was a frontier war. The main war was against France. I know it had been going on for a couple of years, but there were very few regiments actually sent to America. And so you had a very small officer pool to promote from. And they needed somebody to raise a legion, so he was selected out of the aide-de-camps and sent there to do it, and they're like, well, we better promote you because you need these ranks to do this job. Promote, 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 promote. Eventually he's too big to control, gets out of hand. It's ridiculous that this guy was given any power at all. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.